Hi, friends. Welcome to the Mobile Bev Pros podcast, a podcast dedicated to providing mobile bar and event professionals with the information they need to succeed. I'm your host, business coach, and founder of the Mobile Bar Academy, Sarah Murphy. In each episode, the Mobile Bev Pros team will bring you industry experts, information, anecdotes, and opinions with the goal of assisting you in building a profitable, sustainable, and successful business that supports you in creating wealth. I'm excited to share with you today's episode, so let's get started.
Welcome, guys, back to the podcast. We are going to be cross-posting because this golden gem today is going to be relevant for our audience on Crowns and Chaos as well as listeners on Mobile Bev Pros. This is going to be a very advanced concept. If you are in business and you are looking to elevate from the budget or mass market audience to the premium audience, this is going to be helpful for you. If you're in the premium audience and you are looking to elevate into the ultra premium or luxury audiences, this is also going to be for you. If you're listening to this, you're like, I am very happy at budget mass market. This podcast is going to be a huge waste of your time. It is also going to be a riff. Sarah and I are going to be chatting today about concepts that usually we keep closed into ourselves until they're fully developed. But what you're going to be hearing today is a riff. Sarah and I like to combine our magics. She comes at this with a lot of strategy, a lot of business, and we know she stands on business. Absolutely delicious. I come at this with a lot of metaphysical, alchemical, magical concepts. And those two, if you guys have been listening to us, are not separate from each other. And so every now and then we like to mold them together because the metaphysical gives us a framework for all of life, and business is included in that. And so today we are going to be talking about the magics of marketing. At the end of today's riff, I am going to be giving you guys a nugget of absolute gold. It is going to be the one core belief that you need to shift in yourself in order to elevate yourself from mass to premium or from premium to ultra and luxury. And without making this mindset shift, you will not be able to make that jump. And so listen to the end for that nugget of gold. It is considered gold magic, which will be the last of the magics that we talk about. And that's why I'm going to be saving it to the end. So you have to listen to the end if you want that nugget of gold.
And just for transparency's sake, the reason that this is even in the field right now and that we are taking the time to riff publicly, listeners are going to be a fly on the wall here. There is productivity purposes behind this time here. And that's because we are launching a new program. And the whole purpose of the program is to help people make that shift from mass market budget market into the premium, ultra premium, potentially even luxury space. And that's a result of the last 18 months of our work where we've seen that that's what people want. They've been in business for a while. They realize the mass market, the budget market, you work harder down there. You have to have more quantity. Quality gets to be not only difficult to maintain at scale, but potentially isn't even valued by the client at the mass and the budget markets. And for those that are drawn to the work that we do in where we educate this industry or the industries that we educate in, they're seeking better quality clients. They are seeking to be more creative in their business endeavors. They're seeking clients that appreciate them for who they are, not just the box that they check. And how you sell to those clients and who you have to be to attract those clients is different than who you have to be and how you sell to the budget and the mass market. And what we've noticed is that transitioning from one market to the next is where people are struggling. And so we're creating this program that will guide people through that shift. And part of that program is talking about the magics of marketing. And so what we discuss here today is actually helping me wrap my head around how we structure and how we teach and what deliverables, what templates, what resources we need to provide through the teaching of that program. So you're listening in on our creative process on how we formulate and birth into the world the things that we do. And historically, you just show up and you see the results of that. And that's great too. But we figured, why not let you all see how Dawn and I mingle our magics so that we take these very high level concepts out of the ether and put them into programmatic form where we're able to teach and deliver and help others execute on the theories that we utilize in our own businesses and in how we show up in the world. And today, that looks like the 4 core magics of marketing.
And these could also be defined as the 4 core magics, period. They are the fundamentals for everything from alchemy to Enneagram work, all the way into advanced mathematics when you're working with like flywheels. Okay. And so if you guys have ever heard the phrase that like you drum up enough momentum in your business, that flywheel will then start working for you. That is a literal phrase because that's how flywheels work. And what we are giving you today are the electromagnetic principles of how that process is established and how it maintains momentum moving forward. So I'm going to be full on magic today. So I'm going to be I have my whole ass alchemical hat on. So if you're like, Dawn, what does that mean? I want you to email us. I want you to DM us. I want you to tell me, hey, Dawn, you mentioned this thing. I didn't quite get it. Can we go deeper? Because we absolutely can. And these tools will be of great benefit to you. Okay. So to get us started, the 4 core magics that you will see in all alchemical texts, you will also see in all business. Once you learn these, you can't unsee them. And so you'll be driving your little car on your way to get coffee and you'll be like, oh, that's gold magic. Oh, that's black magic, right? Because you're being marketed to all the time. And so now you'll be able to categorize that and know why that particular marketing system works on the psychology, works on the psyche. The 4 core magics are white magic, which is a active magic, black magic, which is a passive magic, red magic, which is a neutral magic, and gold magic, which solidifies the prism of the prior 3 that I've mentioned here. So to be clear, you do have to master white, black, and red in order to establish yourself as a gold magic entity.
Yeah. And so red magic is where we start. We start with red magic because it is the neutral force. And we describe that as being the home. It is sacred. Red magic is, it is what is. It is the reality or the truth of whatever it is that you're marketing from a business angle. But if we were to use this in like a relationship angle, which you absolutely can do, red magic is who you are or what is. So like a relationship with another, whatever it is, without trying to push or pull on it, that is red magic. It is what is true. So under red magic, we're looking at your mission, vision, values. We're looking at the boundaries that you have set or established around your business. So where does your offering start? Where does it end? What do you do? What do you not do? Who are you? Who are you not? This is red magic in that it's the establishment of the entity of how you're showing up in the world, what you're doing, what you're not doing. What is your truth? And so we always start with mission. People are like, okay, we get it. The mission, vision, value work, anything we do, we have to start there. And it's not because we're trying to like beat you over the head with the same thing and we only have one thing to teach. It's that if we don't know where we're starting or what we're starting with or who you are or what you value, what you're trying to accomplish, then neither will your clients, right? And a confused mind doesn't buy. And so we have to get really clear on the red magic of neutrality, which the red magic of neutrality is what helps us in gold later on. And we'll talk about that later. But without the red, we will never get to gold. It's what births everything thereafter. We also talked about this being the branding or your messaging. So we have to start with some sort of messaging around who you are, what you do, how you serve. That's here in the red magic space. We also talk about values here and we establish our values, like what we value, what hills we're going to die on here in red magic. We will signal those values in white magic, but we have to establish them first here in red magic. There isn't a whole lot of doing here because it's neutral. It's all about being. The most amount of doing is building clarity around who you are. You're confining and defining who you are. What values, what hills do you die on? What are you trying to accomplish? How are you going to do what you want to do in the world? That's all right here within red magic.
Red magic is also sacrificial magic, it's blood magic. And if that makes you feel ew, icky, gicky, just stick with me for a second. Women do this every month. We sacrifice in order to create, okay? And so the act of sacrificing something could live in white or black magic later on down the road, but the knowing that it has to be sacrificed is established in red magic. And so this is going to look like, to your point, Sarah, establishing your value, both in pricing and like your values, like the hills you will die on. It's also boundary defining. So it's, to your point, where does this container end? Where does it begin? Where do I end? Where do I begin? Right. And so you could run a business off of three magics, red, black, and white, and it would be a successful business. If you hope to do premium, ultra premium luxury, that's where we have to introduce gold magic. Okay. But just so we're clear, even if you are in a mass or budget audience and you have not established all three of these magics in your marketing and messaging, your business will stagnate. It will go nowhere. We call that lead magic, right? The process of alchemy is turning lead into gold. So we take that which is inert and we put it into ecstatic motion, okay? And that's gold magic. When you are in the process of red magic, you are looking at your price as an indicator of your value. You are literally saying, how sacred is this space? And so, for example, if you are in budget market and you have low prices, anybody and everybody is your audience. First of all, you can already see how like it's available to everyone and there's nothing really sexy about it, right? If you are familiar with my four core pillars of shadow alchemy, this is like prostitution. It's just like, I'll take anybody's money. Any money's good money, right? And we have no value. We have not established ourselves as sacred. We have not established our time as sacred. How many entrepreneurs out there are just willy-nilly throwing their time like spaghetti at the wall, right? They haven't established boundaries within themselves or boundaries around what they do in the world, which automatically makes that thing less attractive because it's available to everyone. So in red magic, we establish boundaries. By doing this, we will have sacrifice. We see this all the time with people who come in and they say, I'm available for anybody who needs drinks at their event. Any event, any drinks, I'm there. The problem, though, is that when we start getting them into the headspace of niching down and clarifying their messaging so that they have a potent message in the world, they start to get nervous. Well, what if I niche into weddings and then I don't attract like these awesome corporate clients? Or what if I niche into corporate and I stop attracting dog mom wine nights? You know what I mean? And so we want to get really clear so that we have a clear focus, but that makes people really uncomfortable. And so just know that like red magic is the first space you're going to be asked to get really uncomfortable to create a powerful flywheel that pays you and keeps you sane.
So as far as resources, templates, swipe files, obviously low hanging fruit here. We already have frameworks around establishing mission, vision, values. So that will be a part of this program. Potentially an exercise around what you hold sacred and what you're willing to sacrifice, bringing awareness around if we confine and define here, that looks like not doing all of these other things. But bringing conscious awareness around that in the beginning of the container helps us from having leaky boundaries later on when we're in the sales process and suddenly people are like, but what about this? And we've already established that's actually a no for us. Our boundaries are pretty tight around this thing. So we'll do some boundary work.
I think pricing work might be advantageous here when we are getting people, at least in the process of getting them to start elevating their consciousness to where they can demand a higher price point and hold confidence in why. I think that the work you do with pricing is monumental because people get to see the math of
Yeah.
why they need to price the way that they need to price in order to actually make a dollar or profit. And so I think pricing is also a conversation, at least a conversation to be had in the red magic vein.
I don't know about that. Remember when we did the premium pricing podcast episode a number of months ago, and I went on this whole riff on how sometimes I feel like I'm doing a disservice to the premium market when I make them do the math, because we also stand on the hill that it's like you can charge anything for anything. And yet I'm having to justify it with math, which yes, gives them confidence, but then they get stuck where like, well, the math can justify this, so this is what I charge.
Yeah.
And really what we're trying to do is get them in a place where the math is giving you false confidence. You know,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
want you to charge what the market can bear. And so like for the confidence piece, I feel like doing the math actually is doing a disservice to the overall goal.
Okay. So I still think pricing would live here, and potentially we just unmarry that mass budget consciousness in how you've taught it previously. And that conversation starts to look more like, why are you afraid to charge higher prices? Which again comes back to like, what are you willing to sacrifice? How do you see yourself? If red magic is the process of being, then when we are pricing from that place, it is a reflection of self-worth, which actually puts us in the vein of the prostitute and the lover in shadow alchemy, right? And so then we have a conversation around value and worth when we're talking about pricing versus having them do the math.
Yes, I think all the shadows will probably come up here, right? Like I have a competitor and they charge this. And so right? And so we'll start to see all the shadows come up here.
Also
But
known as dragons.
dragons, that's right, dragons. So we'll put pricing here. So far I have mission, vision, values, boundary work, sacred, sacrifice, and I have pricing. And
Yeah.
then also some branding. Branding's got to live here.
Branding and messaging.
Branding and messaging. Just
The
the rough.
self-worth work is going to be here. This is actually just the 1 to 2 container with that. Red magic is our 1 to 2 container.
But we always take our one-to-one work and we make it more available through solidification through programming.
Absolutely.
So one begets the other. Okay, we got some branding messaging. We have
Oh,
go ahead.
the other thing I want to say about red magic that I have written down here is qualifiers and offer creation. It's not the process of actually peddling the offer, like the marketing of it, but it is the like having the offer, because you can't have boundaries around an offer you don't have, right? But also the qualifiers. And so if a thing is sacred, and this comes into like branding and messaging, your mission, vision, values, because that naturally is going to qualify people. So is your pricing. That's naturally going to qualify people, but you have to have qualifiers for red magic to be established. And by qualifiers, I just mean, again, it's not for everybody, it's for
Right,
these people.
right. Who you're for.
Yes.
Right. Who you're for, which obviously then becomes like who you're not for. Okay. That's a lot. That's a lot of
It
work
is.
in just the red, which to be fair, the Mobile Bar Academy does a lot of this work already. So
Yeah. It does
it's
feel foundational.
it is foundational. It has to be, right? Because this is where we start. And so anyone who's been through the academy and they've gone, they're like mission, vision, value work. I've done that. I've done branding and messaging. I've done solidifying my offer. Yes, good, great. You have established a lot of your baseline red magics. Those things will probably change if you do them through a premium lens. So if you've already done that work, your branding probably will change because we talk about branding through this programming. We're looking at what's the difference between premium coloring and mass market colors, right? And so you can see this when you look around at like fast food restaurants. They're all those primary colors, right? And then if you look at the luxury brands, you will not find a primary color. You'll find a navy blue, you'll find a black. I guess that could be considered primary, but we know what the primaries are, and it's red, yellow, blue. It's not black, white. We're talking about tone, hue. We're talking about font selection. We're talking about a white space. A lot of times, logos in the mass market or budget space are very busy. There's a lot of things going on. And we want simplicity because simplicity signals we've got it so figured out. This is easy, right? We don't have to give a lot of noise. We don't have to give a lot of explanations. We don't have to put a lot of words in our logos because that's just noise, right? And so the branding looks different in the premium, ultra premium luxury space. And so if you're coming into this container and you've got a lot of this red magic already established, it could be prohibitive not to redo these things through the lens of the premium market.
Yeah, absolutely. As you were saying that, Yves Saint Laurent comes to mind. And if you go like look at their Instagram, you'll see a lot of what Sarah just described, but also like Louis Vuitton. Like when you look at these big brands, Rolex, oftentimes their logo is literally just like the letters of their name. and not so much of that like super busy work. Okay. So next, I feel we should do white magic. And I want to be clear here in the flywheel, white magic and black magic pass the ball back and forth a lot. And it's because one begets the other, which begets the other, which begets the other. When you have white magic, which is active magic, when white is active, black is passive. But when black is active, white is passive. I may have just lost a bunch of people on that. It's okay. You don't need to know it at this stage.
It would get clearer the longer they sit with these concepts, but
It's true. It's true.
this is for you and me.
White magic is aspirational, it's inspirational, it's faith magic. I would say if I was going to give you a quick thing before we start going deeper into white magic so you can see how they pass the ball back and forth, white magic would be faith magic, very oversimplified there. Black magic would be fear magic, also very oversimplified there. And you can't have faith without fear. You also can't have fear without faith. What would you need to be in faith of if you weren't afraid? And what would you be afraid of if you didn't have faith that you would have another day, right? Like otherwise you would live in the neutral. We go back to red magic, you would live in the neutral, and it doesn't matter if the tiger eats you. You're not hardwired that way. You're hardwired to run from the tiger. That is Mother Earth using the intelligence of this flywheel that I'm explaining to you now. You have faith that you can get away from the tiger, else you wouldn't be running. But what inspired that faith? The fear to run. Do you see what I'm saying? And so we have to have faith to have fear. We have to have fear to have faith. They cannot be taken apart. And actually, what we find is when people attempt to cut off their quote unquote negative habits or their negative self, electromagnetism is by definition, and that's what you are, positive and negative in oscillation. So when we try to cut off negativity, don't feel sad. It's all love and light. You guys have heard this rant before. What happens is you end up in lead. You can't transmute. You can't ever go to gold because you've cut off half of you. It would literally be like cutting off your own arm and then attempting to write with that arm. And so now I think we'll go into white magic, but I did want to make it clear that you can't have one without the other.
Which is a very important part, because if there's no pushing, pulling, right, that's the tension that we need in marketing and in sales. The other words that I have down here for white magic are expansive. And so when we think about it through the lens of expansion, through marketing, we're looking at what's possible, the opportunities, right? What can you gain? Where are you growing? What are you adding to your life, to your business, to your situation through white magic? So it's future focused, and some examples of what we see here are success visualization. So like imagine what you could achieve, like we're flaunting like your next level in front of you. Self-improvement, right? In the mobile bar space, you might be looking at how easy their life would be doing this very difficult thing of event planning through your support and your services, right? So we're not like, you could go to jail for not handling the alcohol correctly, not expansive, right? We're showing like how easy, and they could just put their feet up if they hired someone to take care of this portion of event planning, right? One example we talked about previously is like community belonging, being like, you can sit with us, join thousands of others, or join hundreds of other happy hosts who have not had to worry about the bar at their event. Where the flip side of that would look like, you can't sit with us. In marketing, this might look like we're only for a select few, and like that's probably not you, right? And we'll talk about like what that does to people. I have mentioned this in a number of different places and spaces over the years. Black magic is more effective in many cases because we're hardwired to avoid pain. So white magics are oftentimes harder to see the results of. And that is important to note, because for a long time, I was like, I really don't like fear-based marketing. So we used the aspirational white magic only for a really long time. And it's not that we didn't make sales, but we made nowhere near as many sales when we coupled white with black magic, right? And so again, we need both, but bringing awareness around the fact that these aspirational angles for marketing are great. They feel good. We need it in the premium space, because people are oftentimes in the premium space, they're looking for experiences. They're looking for emotion-based buying. They aren't necessarily checking a box by having a mobile bar or whatever service. They could solve this problem in a number of different ways, and they usually can afford to do that. So it's not about not having other options. It's about which one do they resonate with, which one makes them feel the best inside, whether it's because they like your vibe, whether it's because they like you as a person, whether it's because you come with a lot of social proof, they feel good about it. That's all white magic and it's necessary. But you can't just have white magic and you can't just have red and white magic. We've tried that and it is not very effective.
Yeah, because there's no polarity, there's no flywheel. Quite literally, anyone who wants to go Google the magnetic vector or the Enneagram will find that to make that wheel spin, you have to have a push. Think about a wheel. Like a wheel is simultaneously pushing and pulling at the same, that's how it stays in motion, right? And so if your business is to stay in motion, you need push and pull. You also need axle. That's going to be the neutral magic there. And so white magic also, I love that you said expansion. This looks like word of mouth. It looks like a good networking strategy and community or relationship building, right? And so anything that feels expansive, you said, you could be like us. Here's what's possible. In luxury, this shows up as social signaling or stratifying. So, like, you have an experience at your event that says, I'm wonderful. You could be wonderful too, right? And so, in that approach, you're going to be in your marketing talking about what's possible for people in a way that makes them feel like better people, right? Like you will be seen as more elite or more, you don't want to use these directly. This has not been copywritten. Okay. This is like the real and the raw. The other thing that you said that I thought was beautiful was like you were saying like the ease. And then the other day we had a coaching call with a client whose slogan, she wants to move into the ultra premium and luxury spaces. We had a coaching call with her and she was talking about like she makes events easy, which you I think used to be your slogan even for Bar Magnolia. And you were like, no, we don't actually live there anymore. And as you grow, you do better, right? And we've learned since then because for people who are in mass market or budget and are punching up to premium, they're focused on ease. And sometimes the lower level premium are also focused on ease. When we get into ultra premium and luxury, it's assumed that you're going to make this easy. Why the fuck would you make it hard? What are you talking about right now? Like, that's not a selling point. Like, I'm not going to buy your services so I have to work, right? And so at that level, it's assumed that you will have ease. Now, I said this in the beginning, I'm going to reiterate it here. You have to have this flywheel to do any sort of business, whether it's mass budget or it's premium or it's luxury. You have to have this flywheel in place with all three components. The difference being when we get into premium, ultra premium, we're going to elevate this prism. We're going to make it three-dimensional and we're going to go up into gold. Okay. But you still have to have red, white, and black. So if you are in that low premium mass market, ease can be something you market with. If you're moving into upper premium, ultra premium, luxury, stay away from words like ease.
I'm going to go a little bit deeper there. Stay away from words in general. When you move up the ladder, it is assumed by the ideal client of those spaces that everything below the ladder is already there. The premium and up is a vibe. And there's assumptions in a vibe. And so people are going to make assumptions, and actually you need them and want them to make assumptions because the higher up you go, we're looking at lore, we're looking at mythology, and we'll talk about that later. But that's all a story. It's not a checklist. It's not a bullet pointed, these are all the things you can expect, because it's assumed that they get those things. Because if they can get it down here, why wouldn't they be getting it up here? And so you're showing, not telling in this space.
Yeah, when you get up there, the more words you use, the more opportunity you have to fuck that up. You know what I'm saying? We saw this at Brew with someone explaining in great detail why she was a luxury service, which immediately signified to everyone in the room that she was not. Like, if I have to tell you I'm a luxury, we're not a luxury. And at those upper premium and luxury spaces, we are using imagery because you've heard a picture is worth 1,000 words. And so why would I need to show you 1,000 words and then also tell you 1,000 words? And so instead, I communicate to you using archetypes. I communicate to you using subconscious colors, subconscious drivers, desires. There's a yacht company that's always advertising to me. Very few words. I even dropped it into the accelerator earlier on last year because they use very few words, but all of their imagery is very aspirational. Did I say that it was important that you use imagery? Because I feel like and actually that's a gold magic tactic, and we'll get there. But gold magic is birthed from these three magics. And so, again, just like in shadow alchemy, all of these things hold hands. And that's why you have to be a master of all of them, not just one or two.
So, in the teaching of white magic, I'm seeing potentially a list of the different tactics. So, for example, empowerment is a white magic tactic, meaning like take control of your future. You can do anything. And then having them interpret that for their business and who they are. Like, how would you empower your reader or your ideal client through marketing? What could you say? What could you show to assist them in feeling empowered by your brand and your services? And then we could just like go through the different tactics.
Yeah, I also see this as like the first part of your I map it process that we did at Brew with like the imagine, not just for the client journey, but for the actual participant. So they've established who they are, and now we're asking them, who do you want to be? Right? Who do you want to be to the marketplace? Who do you want to be ultimately? Like, what's the goal? Because a lot of times, what we found at Brew and what we've seen in our other programs is that people will set a goal and they've done none of the visionary work and none of the aligning work. I almost want to put alignment here in white magic, like
Hmm.
aligning who you are with where you want to go, right?
Okay.
You had said that white magic was future pacing, and I liked that. I wrote that down. I also wrote down that that would make black magic past pacing, which even deeper. That's delicious.
It
And if
makes
it's
total sense, right? Because it comes from fear, and fear only comes from experience.
experience, right? Exactly. Even if it's DNA or ancestral experience, it comes from a past experience. And so, future pacing in white magic would be imagining what's possible for yourself and then putting that into the world. More shadow is going to come up here because they're going to be like, I can't be that. Like, I can't be that. And then we can also, once we've unlocked that for them, they'll be able to pull that content forward for their customer, because then they'll be talking to their customer from the seat of who they want to be and not necessarily from the seat of who they are.
This also feels very much like the Woo the Premium Buyer curriculum, where we're asking them, like, who's your ideal client? How do you want to make them feel? What action do you want them to take in every step of the client journey? So we can pull, I think, some of the worksheets and stuff that we had for that workshop into this white magic space.
I wrote down community for white magic and I underlined unity in that word, right? Because white magic, the love and light girlies, white magic is we are one, right? Christ consciousness is white magic. It is we are one and the same. And so it's do unto thy neighbor what you would do unto thyself. I tried to thy and you at the same time there, and like it made my brain all fuzzy. But like they call it the golden rule, but it should be the white magic rule. White magic can be and is often weaponized. Okay, so even though we're explaining it here to you in like a very light and delicious, fluffy way, it can be weaponized. And we see this a lot with organized religions who used white magic and black magic, because you can't have faith without fear, to burn 9 million witches, right? Like they were like purity consciousness. And this is what happens when we try to cut off the negative side of ourselves. We end up with such imbalance that we are hyper focused on chromophobia. We're hyper focused on purity consciousness. And that is to the detriment of so many people, women, especially people of color, especially indigenous peoples, queer peoples, anyone who doesn't fit into the purity consciousness box. We have an imbalance there, and it's weaponized. It becomes the antithesis of unity, packaged as supreme unity. Okay, so just be clear, white magic can be used in a detrimental way.
Absolutely, especially when you're attempting to put one on a pedestal and the other below, you lean too heavy into that, you're exclusionary, and it's the opposite of unity. And what I loved what you said about community, underlining unity, is that we teach what I like to call is this desire of being reflected. So white magic includes these aspirational images because it makes people connect with you because they feel reflected in your messaging. So you're showing them either who they want to be, which is aspirational, or I resonate with that because that is how I am. I love these things. I appreciate these things. I want these things. And so they see themselves, their deepest desires reflected back to them. So they feel part of something. So very much like we are one, me too. I also love those things. And so I must be part of, I like this brand because they reflect back to me the things that I love and value.
We see this disproportionate in our society as light supremacy or white supremacy, where we have a lack of representation for people of color, indigenous peoples, queer peoples, anyone who's not just a white couple in our media. You can see how, like, in colonization, like, it's been on a pedestal for a long time, right? And it has caused our society to be very lopsided. So all the white people are looking at that and they're saying, hey, like, I can see myself in your marketing, without looking to say, but who am I excluding and to what detriment? Because there's no representation for them. Even though I'm being reflected in this messaging, I'm not being inclusive.
Right, absolutely. And I love that you brought that up because within white magic, we are looking at what are you reflecting out to the world? Who are you including and who are you potentially subconsciously or unconsciously excluding by not representing them in your messaging? Because ideal client, right? We got to look at that. And we work with a lot of people who will stand on, when we do the value work, they'll say inclusivity, diversity, those things are values. And then immediately we're like, okay, here's the mirror. Where does that show up in your messaging? Where does that show up in your imagery? Because if you stand on that, people need to be able to see that. Again, show, don't tell. It's not enough to have a policy. It's not enough to list your values. You have to actually walk the walk. You have to be about it, right? And so that's all here in this white magic portion.
If any of you are hearing this and subconsciously you've already associated white magic with the superior magic, that's exactly what we're saying here. That's where you want to be really cautious, is that most people hear black magic and they go, that's awful. But if you're operating without black magic, which has been highly demonized on purpose, because black magic is actually where your power lives. They don't want you to have power. No, no, no. Black magic is actually the home to the mother goddess, to the woman, to the liberated and artistic person. Like, black magic is where liberation happens. Black magic used on the self as an alchemical tool is to look in at the shadows, to look in at the fears, and to hold space for those ugly emotions that you've heard us talk about are not actually ugly. I was using quotation marks there. Rage, sadness, grief. Those are seen as lesser. And so we would just rather isolate those from society. And then we have a population of people who feel isolated. Anyway, so black magic, past pacing. This is the easiest one to wrap your head around. And when I say it, you're gonna be like, oh, actually, actually, black magic is everywhere in marketing. This is FOMO. It's in the name, fear of missing out. This is lack. So in your marketing, this is going to be like, you, again, not optimally copywritten here, but like, you're less than because you don't have this thing. You're not as cool as the cool kids because you don't have this thing. So lack, scarcity, which I always like to write as two words, scare city. So there's not a whole lot of these, hurry up, get in. These are the flash sales that you see, mass and budget marketing. Black magic is one of the easiest levers to pull for them because people there are motivated to stay away from pain instead of to seek pleasure. We are hardwired that way. That's black magic.
Just a few words, like I did the last one, that I have around black magic is it's restrictive. So it's the opposite of the expansive white magic. Fear-based. It is urgent. And by urgent, I mean that there's limited everything. There's no time, there's limited resources. When I said like pain point emphasis, I literally envision like putting your thumb on like a bullet wound. It's like the pain's there. I'm going to agitate it. I'm going to make it so aware that you can't unsee it. And we talk about this already in a lot of the programming in the Mobile Bar Academy, where we talk about there's hot leads, cold leads, and warm leads. And cold leads don't know that they have a problem and they're not ready to spend money to tackle it. And so fear-based marketing, this particular black magic, doesn't really work with a cold lead because they don't have a pain point to pressure. If it's effective enough, you could make them aware of a pain point they didn't know they had, but now they move into like the warm lead space. Which marketing to a cold audience, the whole purpose is to indoctrinate or to manipulate them into seeing a pain point that they didn't even know exists. So you create pain for them, right? Like it sounds really bad, but this is what we all are succumbing to every day, is this manipulation of priority. Like you didn't know that this was a problem. Now you know this is a problem. Now I need to make you so aware of it that you're willing to spend money to solve this problem you didn't know that you had, right? And unless we have conscious awareness around these tactics, we fall prey to them. So with black magic, we're looking at things like competition anxiety. Don't fall behind. All of your competitors are already doing this. We see loss aversion, like don't lose what you've already built. Like you've already sunk this much time, money, and energy into your business. Are you going to let it fail, or are you going to, throw a little bit more money at it to like make it succeed? Or if you're a mobile bar, for example, this is the biggest day of your life, and the last thing that you want is a shitty bar ruining that day for you, right? Like that's loss aversion. Also, social pressure. This sometimes looks like fear of missing out, but it also looks like, well, everyone else is already. So, like, everyone else is already on TikTok. Why aren't you there? You're missing out on so many other things. Like, everybody's doing it type stuff, right? Opportunity cost is here too. So, every day you wait, it costs you X. So, if you're a mobile bar, you're like, if you don't book now, you might not be able to book at all. Or if you don't book now, our prices are going up. Like that's opportunity cost. And then also fear and regret, right? So, like, don't book a shitty mobile bar. It's going to ruin your day. Looking back, you're going to wish you had done this, that sort of thing. Everything I'm saying here, people are like, oh, yeah, that's the vast majority of marketing tactics that we see. But that's because budget and mass market utilize black magic potentially exclusively. But that's also why they have to keep doing it. And so a case study here, and I learned this back in grad school, 2006, 2007. So I don't know much about it any longer, but once upon a time, JCPenney's was seen as like a nice department store. And then we started to see the Targets of the world and the Kohl's of the world, and they were running all of these deals. And so JCPenney's was like, I don't know if their leadership was like, let's try something new, even though they'd been around forever and ever. So they started doing like these discounts and these coupons. And what they saw was that now that they were running these coupon sales, people would wait to buy from JCPenney's until the coupons were available. Whether it was conscious or unconscious, it started to make them look like more of a discount reseller because people would only spend with them when there was these coupons. We see this with Kohl's. Now that's their entire tactic. Kohl's runs all these crazy deals wherein you get like Kohl's bucks and like these special days you can go in and do shopping. And like, I'm not really aware. All I know is that when I go in there to get a random thing, because I'm not a part of that Kohl's bucks craziness, I pay a lot. I think like my daughter wanted a t-shirt and it was like $30. And I was like, we're not getting that. You know what I mean? But like their rates are really high because they run all these deals that discount them to normal rates. That's a tactic that they're using. And what that did for JCPenney's, and the reason I'm telling this story, is it took a premium market brand and it pulled it below into the mass market space, and it was inadvertent, and that they couldn't actually get back out. So now people were only spending money if they issued coupons, and they got stuck there. So now they were constantly having to discount things to even get people to come in the door and buy things. And so when you're utilizing fear-based marketing, you have to keep throwing it at them. You have to constantly be running a discount. You have to constantly be using the FOMO triggers. You have to open closed doors. You have to create boundaries, sometimes false scarcity, just to create urgency because people aren't in that aspirational space any longer when they're utilizing your product. So one of the reasons why we point this out here and we start with white magic is because we want to tap into black magic intentionally, but we can't lean too hard on it or we flip the balance and now we have to live there.
Which is exactly the thing that we just said about white magic, right? Like we've leaned too far one way, then this is what happens. Again, to your point, the flywheel has to stay in motion. And for that to occur, you have to have positive and negative and neutral. You have to have all three at play. And if you don't, you have to manually turn the wheel yourself. And that's going to look like, again, to your point with black magic or to what we just said earlier with white magic. The only other thing that I would say about black magic is that there's a way to do this in a delicious to like protect boundaries. And how do we do that? I'll give you a real world example. Brew, we have determined that we are only selling 25 tickets to this next event. That's black magic because we have made it exclusive. We've given limited access. There's only 25 people in the community are going to be able to come. We didn't do that because we're trying to evoke fear in people. Now, we used black magic to do it, but the reason we chose this is because we value intimacy. It's your word of the year, in case anybody hasn't heard that yet. It's Sarah's word of the year. Intimacy is Sarah's word of the year. And we are going all in on intimacy. Also, the number of people who were in that room who were like, the number of people here is perfect. Like it's incredible, right? And we didn't chop it in half. We didn't go from like half attendees. We only cut out like maybe 2 or 3 seats that were sold in the past event because it was a pretty perfect number that we landed on.
We also didn't seek that feedback. Like they volunteered that. And for you and I, the lift to be that intimate for even those 27 people to like get to know them and their stories and like who they are and how they operate, that was a heavy lift. I don't know that we could have done to the same level of quality more people. And so to your point, that restraint, that black magic limit wasn't false and it wasn't created. It was genuine in capacity.
Yeah. And for those of you who are listening and learning right now, it was also past pacing because we looked at an experience we already had. We weren't afraid, though I will say homework night would have been hellacious had we had 40 attendees. We already spent like 6 hours on homework night after teaching all day. And so like 40 attendees, maybe a little bit of fear magic in there, but and you'll see that that will create a level of exclusivity, black magic, scarcity, black magic, FOMO, black magic, when we market this to the group because there's only 25 spaces and that's not being done in a malicious way. I want to be clear that, again, you can weaponize white magic. Black magic isn't necessarily malicious. It's boundary setting, it's defining and confining, it's containing, it's past pacing, learning from the past. If you guys have ever made a mistake and been like, won't do that again, black magic. Also, if any of you struggle with anxiety, also self imposed black magic. That's just a side note.
As you were talking about the weaponization of white magic, I saw that being pulled down. I'm a visual person. You're not seeing it, but we see red magic, white magic, and black magic flat on the table, 3 dots in the image of a triangle. If you were then to go below the table, 1 point, we're looking at lead. If you were to go up the table, 1 point in the middle, so now we're looking at like a pyramid, gold magic. So when you were talking about white magic being weaponized, I saw it being pulled under towards the lead magic. And when you were talking about using black magic to create more intimacy, to honor capacity, to deliver to the expectations of what you're selling, I saw that lifting up towards gold magic. And they all, to your point, they all hold hands. We're literally weaving together all of these magics to get to the top of the pyramid here, which is the gold magic. You can weaponize black magic using false scarcity, using false limitation, and that pulls you down towards the lead, right? Because
Yeah.
it's not real. We're agitating maliciously, not necessarily to add value to something or to hold sacred the container that you created, but to manipulate.
So black magic resources, I think, are going to look like defining and confining, setting limits and boundaries, which again, you're going to be like, that's familiar from what we did in red magic. Yes. And now we're doing it from a space of learning from past experiences. Black magic is also going to be the space where all the shadows get fleshed up. Not that they haven't already been. When people are asked to define and confine and to put limits on certain things, it's also going to be the part where we ask them to reflect on their ideal clients' pain points. Nobody ever likes that, but like it's important that you know your ideal client's pain points. And I think that this one is going to be a lot about balancing. And I say balancing because the JC Penney story was glorious, right? That pulled them down into lead, so it's inert. The wheel won't move without them constantly couponing, right? And so we want to help people utilize black magic in a powerful way And because black magic is a passive magic, it is the attracting force. It is the magnetic force. I'm not really sure what resources we currently have. Maybe you already are already like bing, bing, bing. I have that.
As for resources, well, we definitely want to do fears of ideal clients. We want to bring awareness to like what are our ideal clients afraid of.
Then that makes me also want to do their fears, which is a natural product of white magic. Once we have you visualize where you want to be, immediately we're going to have to deal with the dragons that tell you why you can't be there. We saw that so beautifully executed in Brew. And so
Yeah.
again, this is kind of giving that I map it process where like once you imagine what's possible, now you have to deal with all the gargoyles that are telling you that you're not enough because that thing your dad said when you were a kid, right?
Right. I think what I called it at Brew was resistance work, bringing awareness to like where we are in resistance.
Oh
And
my God.
also potentially like where are your clients in resistance? Is it price point? Because there are 5 beliefs that people need to have before they're willing to buy. So we could do that work here, the 5 beliefs. And that fifth belief is the client needs to believe they can do what's necessary to make the engagement possible. That could look like, can I afford you? Do I have enough time? Do I have enough capacity of other resources in order to make this engagement work? And so that's where resistance comes up in that fifth belief, which is makes sense that we're this far along in the process before we're talking about resistance, because that's going to be the thing that keeps them from actually giving you their money.
You know what I just realized, and this is just a side note, but Sarah, you'll know how big of a deal this is. Black magic is resistance. That means white magic is attachment.
Oh my God.
Yes, yes. And it also means that red magic is acceptance.
Oh my God.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Big magics. Okay, we are ready to move into gold magic. And so, guys, at the end of gold magic, I am going to give you that one core belief that you absolutely have to shift if you are going to move into the premium, ultra premium, and luxury spaces. And when it hits you, when it lands, you're going to be like, oh my God, how glorious. And gold magic is my favorite place to live. Anybody who sat with me at Brew knows that I have a golden tarot deck because gold magic is life. This is the vitality of all things gold magic. And here it is. Make sure you don't have kids in the car. Pause. Gold magic is sex magic. Yes. Now, if you're like, really, Dawn? Yes, that's the epitome of all things. I'll give you an example. Where would you be without sex? Right. It is everything in existence comes into existence because of friction between masculine and feminine, which, if you were paying attention, what we just described to you in red, white, and black magic is a process of friction between masculine and feminine energies, light and dark energies, electromagnetism, right? Pushing and pulling. That's how we create friction. It's how everything comes into existence. And so gold magic is the opposite of lead magic, and it will enable you to keep your flywheel in motion. So once we have elevated to the space of gold magic, we have generated enough momentum with the red, white, black flywheel that now we are flying. Gold magic is you're energetically flying at that point, and it's just the most glorious. And so to break this down for you, gold magic is anything sensual. The epitome of this, and we see this, you can actually use this in lead magic too, and I'm going to tell you the difference, is sex sells. Have you ever heard that before? Sex sells. It's the base. Everybody needs sex. Even on a subconscious level, like if you're a nun and you're like, I don't want sex, okay, but subconsciously we can't regenerate without it. When we talk about sex magic from a lead standpoint, meaning that it's inert, there's no flywheel in motion, we're not honoring the laws of the prior 3 magics. This looks like you put a girl in a bikini with a Coors Light in her hand on a cooler and everybody's like, "Oh my God, I need that cooler." Right?
I
Do you
don't
see what
know. I don't know if you know this, but every time you go into the space of lead magic, you put on your heaviest Southern accent.
I just heard it. And listen, guys, I was raised in the South. All right. I was raised in the South. And
When
I
you
actually love the South because, like, we have the very best chicken and the very best tea. But I do want to be clear here. Oh my God, I do that.
when you edit, you're gonna see the first time you did it was like at the beginning of this episode.
Okay, lead magic. Let me get right here. Lead magic looks like everybody's attracted to the girl on the cooler. There's no reason for them to stay unless the girl on the cooler stays. But as soon as she's gone, they're gone, right? And so you can see how like JC Penney's, it's inert. There's no flywheel. They have to keep calling the girl back and keep asking her to wear the bikini and keep putting a Coors Light in her hand in order for people to continue buying their product. So sex sells at the base level, sex sells at the golden level, and there is a huge fucking difference. One of them being like, I don't know, honoring women. Let's start there. Honoring sexuality, that's another good place to go. It is value based. Again, in the Shadow Alchemy series, lead would be prostitutional magic. It's still sex.
Scratching an itch.
Scratching an itch, yes. The lover would be gold magic, still sex, all right? But sex is so many other things. It's sensuality. And so in this vein, we see experiential marketing. We see where your brand and messaging evolves and becomes your mythology or your brand lore, right? And so it becomes like an ecosystem people can't quite understand, but they absolutely want to be a part of. If you haven't noticed, we're using gold magic right now in this episode because we want to disseminate enough information that you're like, oh, this is so delicious, but also give you enough mystery that you're like, but I need more, right? That's gold magic. It's the allure, it's your imagery is a form of gold magic. The sounds that you place next to your brand imagery, like if you're doing a Instagram story, that's going to also contribute in the gold magic vein. You guys are always in this because you're selling drinks, right? Not all of you, actually. Our audience is expanding. Let me also a lot. Most of our audience is mobile bar owners. And so you guys, like the taste of the drink is a gold magic, right? The a cup that you pour it in, how does that feel in the hand? What does it look like? Is it appealing? Is it just trash? Is it compostable? All of these are gold magic questions. And so the experience of something, the sensuality of something is gold magic, but also the lore that it creates, the desire for more that it creates. And so this one feels both electric and magnetic simultaneously.
What I love about gold magic is that we can very tangibly look at the senses for sensual and consciously integrate them into our marketing. The easiest for a lot of people, especially because social media is where we get a lot of this, is your visuals and your audio, right? But successful brands have long been utilizing other senses. If you think about a luxury fabric, you're thinking about how it feels on your skin. How does silk feel on your skin versus polyester, right? How does cashmere feel on your skin versus the scratchy sweater that grandma knit with her wool yarn? What are smells that are associated with the premium market versus the budget market? We very much know subconsciously what a expensive perfume smells like versus one that you got at Target. My girls always go into Target and spray all the things. And it's like, oh, that's so gross. Oh, Bath and Body Works, great example. I fucking can't with that place. I cannot walk in there, immediate headache. It just smells cheap. And it's not that like, I just can't, it's too aggressive. It's like, ah, these things are all come into play when we're building a brand. And with Gold Magic, we're thinking about the senses with every touch point. We taught this in the Woo the Premium Buyer workshop that we did in Nashville last year. But every single touch point, we're thinking, how do we want them to feel? What do we want them to take away? What do you want them to do with this interaction and touch point? And what do we want them to think about this interaction and touch point? And so if you're going to a networking event, that's an in-person, very sensual thing. And people are taking in the entirety, the 3D of you, what you sound like, what you look like, how you smell, the texture, whether it's a really hard handshake or a firm handshake. All of that is a part of their sensual experience with you. And so from the Gold Magic perspective, we are always looking at every touch point that we have with potential clients, leads, or our clients once they do pay us from the perspective of what do we want people to feel, which is sensual, right? What do we want them to think? What do we want them to do as we nurture them from one touch point to the next?
Then you have places like Disney. Now, Disney is gold magic. They utilize their flywheel flawlessly. They incorporate red magic, white magic, black magic into everything they do. Go watch Fantasia. They told you that they did it, but because they're luxury, they told you with imagery, not with words. Fantasia, no words, but they still told you. When you go to like Disney World or Disneyland, you smell it. They've established the sacrifice because you had to pay a lot of money to be there. You're going to be hot. You know what I'm saying? But you're going to do it anyway, right? And you had to buy all those damn matching t-shirts before you got here. You know what I'm saying? They've established there's a sacrifice required for you to go to Disney World, okay? But when you get there, everything tastes exquisite. Everything's still super expensive, so they're already elevating. They're saying, "We're up here. Come meet us up here." And they don't use black magic in fear. They use black magic as mystery, which is what I was trying to establish earlier, right? It's the mystery and it's the exclusivity. Everybody can't come to Disney World. It's expensive to be here. And when you get here, how does this work? Their ride that they have, that's the fucking elevator ride, the Twilight Zone, was the first elevator and to potentially is still one of the only elevators in the world that leaves its shaft and moves in multiple directions. Okay. Which, as somebody who's a little bit afraid of elevators, I didn't really like to learn that because I was like, they have to unhook and rehook in the dark, and I'm not a fan. You know what I mean? But anyway, that sensory experience of leaving a lot to mystery. You'll never know how they do what they do. There's a whole study. They have doors painted green that are for staff only, and the color green that they paint the doors is a subconscious element to most humans. So what happens is you never even notice that they're there. They're there, they're in plain fucking sight, but they painted them a color that they know that the subconscious dismisses so that you're never inconvenienced by having to see how these characters get from one place to the next, right? They use gold magic brilliantly, and it's all about the allure. Why do you go there? Because you don't understand it. If you understood it, it would be Carowinds and it would be dying, right? You go there because you don't know how it works. You go there because every time you're there, you're overcome with awe, the sensations, everything smells. Why does it always smell like funnel cakes and chocolate covered strawberries here? How does this person look exactly like Cinderella? You know, creme de la creme. And I'm not a Disney fan, but I am a gold magic fan.
I have another example of someone who executes gold magic with perfection. And I don't know much about this world, so I'm immediately kind of outside my comfort zone and speaking on this with authority, but I know gold magic when I see it, and it is Taylor Swift.
Oh my God, yes, as fuck. I also am outside of my comfort zone here, but yes, 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 yes.
Talk about mystery, all sorts of breadcrumbs. People are out there spending their entire days trying to figure out when her record's going to drop, what this particular post means. Like, there's an entire underground community that is all hers. They make bracelets, they show up in droves. Like, she has mastered gold magic. I mean, even I was looking up some of her album covers, and she has one called Red. She has one called Folklore. She has one called Lover. I don't even know how to explain it other than to say that Taylor Swift has mastered gold magic from a number of different angles. And so it's a vibe. I can't, like, sometimes words aren't enough. It's a vibe.
And that's the point, right? Once you've elevated to the gold magic standard, you see how like everything you said about her, and I can't speak for all of them, but the albums that you mentioned there, one word. And that's what we were trying to say. Like when you elevate to this level and you're using less words, you're using more imagery, you're using art, which she's uniquely suited to do because she writes a song and everybody's like, which boyfriend was that about? She represents the liberated woman through her art. You can see this because she's like one of the most successful people on the fucking planet. And I don't have the stats in front of me, but I know like she outranks Beyonce, which is dangerous, apparently. I said what I said. Listen, Hollywood in itself is the space of magic. For those of you who don't know the lore of the Hollywood, the branch of the holly tree was utilized to funnel magic. So the word Hollywood is telling you this is the space for magic. And we know that because you can go on, watch Avatar. How did they do that? That's incredible, right? There's mystery to it. And you almost don't want to know, but you kind of want to know. But you don't want to know because you love a good mystery. And so anyone who has established hyper success had to have mastered gold magic as well. And so Taylor Swift is a great example of that. Any of your luxury brands are operating at the gold magic standard, period. Any of them. A great book for this, The Luxury Strategy, for anybody who's interested in gold magic and the anti-laws being the attractive force. And so the biggest difference between gold magic and lead magic is that lead magic has to go out and get people. Gold magic is going to sit back and let you come to me. I'm so attractive, you can't resist.
And the words that we use around here again, lore, mythology, mystery, allure, sensuality, experiential. I just wanted to note storytelling. This is big buzz in all of business. Any gurus are going to tell you, you got to tell a story in order to get people to do the thing, right? And we do this too. When I teach premium, one of the first shifts is like, get away from the bullet points, like tell a story, tell them what you want, where you're starting and where you want them to end up. We do that because our brains evolved to remember things through storytelling, not through lists. The book that I'm reading right now called Nexus talks all about how the brain evolved to do that wonderfully. The difference being is that with gold magic, the storytelling has evolved into lore. It has evolved into mythology that other people are telling each other. There's a book called Talk Triggers, and he talks about telling stories. But the one thing about the stories that are told within Talk Triggers is that they become lore. So if you talk about Cheesecake Factory, you're talking about their giant menu. Now, is that a gold magic entity? I would say no, not necessarily. But the lore there is around their menu. They don't have to say, we got a big menu. Other people are saying it for them, right? That's where we move from storytelling into lore, is that the story has evolved beyond the brand and people are telling each other and taking a little bit more ownership. Then they become raving fans. Taylor Swift has raving fans. They create their own lore as a community together. Taylor's not out there braiding bracelets for people. People are braiding bracelets and giving them to each other as a part of the community and culture that they've created in the name of Taylor Swift. That's the mythology, that's the lore. Disney itself, there are entire entities and entire frameworks around Disney that Disney has nothing to do with, whether they're travel planners that just do Disney, or whether there's blogs out there that are all the tips, the hacks around how to navigate Disney, the best places to go. They've created their own self-propelling space around the entity. That's when we've elevated storytelling into mythology or lore.
Gold magic is how you become deified. Taylor Swift has become a deity, right? Beyonce has become a deity. Disney is a deity. And I mean that in literal and metaphysical, which are not separate ways. And so if you want to deify your business, your brand, gold magic must be mastered. Now, unfortunately, gold magic, this is where you can't teach luxury and you can't teach gold magic. Now, if you want to learn gold magic with Sarah and I, you can enter into a 1-to-2 container with us and we will pull apart all your fears, all your stories. We'll dig into your white magics, your red magics, your black magics as a person and as a business to help you identify and become your most genius self. You can't teach genius, your most liberated and authentically and fully expressed self. That's the deification process. It's not something that we can necessarily put into a program. All these others, red, white, black, we can teach you. Gold magic, we are going to have to extract from you. That's different, okay? I want to say this too about gold magic. One, it's intimate. Gold magic is always intimate. And so when we look at luxury brands at their highest levels, so you can buy a t-shirt from Yves Saint Laurent on their website. When you get it, the whole process is an experience. The package that you open is higher quality than any other package. Potentially there's a smell, the tissue paper that they've wrapped the t-shirt in. There might be a card from them that says like you're amazing and it's on this incredibly strange card stock that's different than any other card stock you've experienced. They're experiential, but at their highest levels, you have to go to them. Luxury, you have to come to me. We see this with bag stores or watch stores or insert, Rolls Royce, whatever it is, insert luxury brand here, where it's inconvenient for you. You have to make a sacrifice. You have to go to that place. Then the experience of feeling the leathers, of picking out the components you want used in your bag. And then a master seamstress is going to sew this bag for you by hand. So there's no cut corners. Also, none of that was law because luxury looks different for every single person. That was just to give you an idea of what I mean when I say it's intimate. And I mean that at the highest level, not intimate like we were just talking about with black magic, white magic, red magic. Intimate, like on a whole, it's deified intimacy, right? The other thing that I'll say here is that your bit about storytelling, deified brands, luxury brands, gold magic brands allow rumors to circulate and they do not answer to the rumors. I'll give you a great example of somebody who does this, Lady Gaga. Lady Gaga is another one who has raving fans. And this landed with me when I was probably 15 years old and it's never left me. Why did she wear that fucking meat suit? Why did she wear the meat suit? Why? You can see it. I just said it. Why did she show up in an egg? Was she even in the egg? Did anybody ever confirm that Lady Gaga was actually in that egg? Why did she do that? Because people have more questions than answers, and she never has to tell you why. When you can maintain a lore, when you can maintain a lore, Allure, then you can maintain a lore, Lore, right? You can maintain a lore. And so people will spread the rumors for you. This is why they say all press is good press. And that's just because the aim wasn't for people to understand why Lady Gaga wore the meat suit. The point was for people to wonder why, even for decades after. Why did she wear the meat suit? And now she has a whole tribe of people. She calls them monsters, and they are self-identified as monsters, minions to the deity. This is delicious. We could get all into like worship magic and like religious cults, but like I'm not going to do that here because that would make this podcast 6 hours long. Another great example of this, nobody wants to hear his name. I'm going to say it anyway because you know who he is, Aleister Crowley. More questions than answers with that dude. And so people are like, oh, he's a bad guy. Yeah, but don't you still know who he was? Right? Like, so it worked. It worked. What he wanted to do, he did, which was become omnipresent in the minds and the collective consciousness of people. Even if he did that through primarily black, and actually he was a master magician, so he did primarily black magic. He like overdosed, I think, on like heroin, right? But he actually did a lot of great work with white magic, great work being powerful, not good work, because he became deified. We still remember that man. He still makes Christians just crawl completely out of their skin at the mention of his name. And so it worked. He was able to create lore that then people perpetuated out of not understanding who he was, out of the mystery of who he was.
I want to highlight here the word power for a few reasons, not least of which in that you and I have a mission to put people in their seat of power, to learn how to be empowered and how to wield responsibly that power. Everything that we do is doing that on some level. With luxury, the power dynamic shifts. With upper premium, the power dynamic between the client and the business flips. When you are premium, budget, mass, the customer's always right. The customer holds all the power. The customer has the money, right? And so we're trying to attract them and convince them and manipulate them into giving us the money by marketing and selling to them. When you move into gold magic, that power dynamic flips. And now the business, the entity, is the one with the power. And the client, again, to your point, you lean back, the client has to come to you. That's a power dynamic. That's a power move. They have to come to you now. They have to take whatever it is that you're willing to give. There are a limited number of options in luxury, and it's on purpose. And it is not coming from a place of shadow. It's coming from a place of capacity. It's coming from a place of this is what we're willing to give. And people will clamor for those things. So that's what I wanted to say about power in regards to how does this program help further our personal missions to empower people, to help people sit confidently in their seat of power and how to wield power responsibly? And then also how with gold magic and where you're going to leave us here, is to highlight that up into the point of luxury, the power sits with the client. When you reach gold magic, slip into the luxury space, you have to be willing and empower enough to allow you to be in power and the client not to be.
I want to be clear here that ultra premium and premium brands can borrow from the anti-laws of luxury in order to make themselves more attractive. And there is actually no limit to how much from luxury you can borrow except for price point. And that's a different episode for a different day. Highly recommend you read The Luxury Strategy. But you're right, this is a perfect leeway into that gold nugget you all were promised. The one belief set you must shift if you're going to operate at the premium to luxury spaces. That belief set that needs to shift is I am the prize. When you are working at budget mass market and even in some of the premium markets, the client is the prize. We had a person who has been circling the drain on joining the academy for a long time in the inbox the other day. And this person was adamant that I prove to them our expertise and authority in the field. And they had a lot of questions about why they needed proof. Was there anybody that they could ask about how good we are? They started the conversation by telling me in our follow up that they were concerned that it just wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth the price. They have hesitation around investing in coaches and mentors and courses at a high level. And so they weren't convinced of the value. And I maintained a luxury position or a ultra premium position, which is it is not my place to demonstrate our value to you. That is readily available from every facet on the planet. You can ask in our Facebook group, you can ask in really any Facebook group what people's experience with the academy was. I, on my end, see people every day who were monthly clients, quarterly clients who are like, how can I become lifetime? We watch lifetime members, quarterly clients say, how can I work with you at a more intimate level? Let me get into the accelerator. We have accelerator clients who are like, how can we get even more intimate and work with you at the 1-2 level? I am convinced of our value. Our authority in the space has been established. And now I have the privilege of leaning back into gold magic and saying, no, when you're ready, you come to me. Because what we're not going to do is me pander to you and try and convince you. And so when we have clients as the prize, we are going to go out of our way to make sure that we win the prize. We're going to throw discounts at them. We're going to be in their inbox saying, I'll do anything. You want me to add this on for free? I'll throw in extra bartenders. We're going to break our back because the client is the prize. When we flip that in gold magic and I become the prize, our product becomes the prize, we recognize everyone is not attuned to art. Luxury clients, ultra premium clients have an appreciation for hand-stitched leather goods that people who shop at Walmart do not have. And when they have that appreciation, they recognize mastery and they will go to the master and say, would you please? Versus not being in mastery and coming out of themselves and saying, someone please buy my leather goods. Someone please buy my leather goods. I was trying my very best to not do my Southern accent when I did that. So just to be clear, I am the prize is the master mindset shift for you to move from mass market into the premium, ultra premium, and luxury spaces where you lean back and you say, you all come to me. I'm doing a service. I recognize my value. I don't need to prove it to anyone. This is a privilege that is only created once you have mastery of your flywheel. You can't have no flywheel and be in red magic, totally neutral, just existing and expect people to come to you and be like, hey, I'd like to pay you 20 grand to coach me. Because they don't even know you exist, right? And this is why luxury brands use fish bait for people. And so there are things on Yves Saint Laurent that anyone can afford. Maybe it's a $50 keychain. That doesn't mean that those people are privy to the ecosystem of Yves Saint Laurent. It doesn't mean that those people who carry the one Yves Saint Laurent handbag they've ever been able to afford are part of the ecosystem. But it is aspirational. That's white magic, right? We said maybe one day you could have that. You have to have your flywheel going before you can lean back and say, come to me, I'm the prize. because otherwise nobody knows you exist. So what prize is that?
I have another example that I want to give people, and it is Liquid Death. Liquid Death is a canned water company, in case people don't know. They break all the rules of traditional water. It's literally water, okay? They chose the thing that is the most prolific in the world just because they could. They packaged it in a way that looks like beer, honestly. They named it something Liquid Death, and they do whatever they want whenever they want. They are more expensive than any other water because it's a vibe. It's not just the water. They use marketing like a sword. They do all sorts of crazy random shit. My favorite example most recently is they partnered with Yeti and had Yeti build a coffin that they then auctioned off. They had one of it, and they just do whatever they want to do because they hold all the power cards. Another example of this is they got sued when they canned an Arnold Palmer. They got sued by Arnold Palmer's family. And instead of like even toying with any of that, they just renamed it Dead Billionaire and moved on with their lives. Like gold magic.
They also have established values. And so their slogan is murder your thirst and death to plastic. Right. And so they stand for something. When I drink Liquid Death, I'm also signaling to people that I give a fuck about the environment and that I was thirsty. And they do both of those very well. Right. And so they've established their values. Guys, take this. This is a long podcast. Thank you for sticking around to the end. I hope it was golden. Take this and start looking at your favorite brands and see, where are they convincing you aspirationally? Where are they warning you or using fear? Where are they establishing boundaries and making something sacred? And then if it's a really good brand, a really powerful brand, at what level are they creating lore and mystery that makes me want more, that makes me salivate for what they have? Guys, this has been an awesome episode. Obviously, in the show notes, you can sign up for the wait list. We'll have more information about what this program will look like moving forward. If you want in, join the wait list. We will open doors to the wait list first, and we will red magic decide how many people we're going to allow into that container, and we will let you all know, and then there will be a wait list from there. But for now, let us know that you're interested. Reach out to us if this resonated with you, and we will talk to you all on the next one.
And that wraps up today's episode. I hope it was valuable. I would love to hear from you what you thought. You can drop me a line at hello@mobilebevpros.com or find me on Instagram at mobilebevpros. If you're looking for more valuable mobile bar related content, we have a website full of it. You can find us at www.mobilebevpros.com. And I'd love to see you in our Facebook community, also by the name of, you guessed it, Mobile Bev Pros. Thank you for joining me today, and until next time, cheers.